So the next method that I'm going to share with you is the, pull up my papers. It's hard to keep all this in my head. I have to have notes. So the next method is the classical method. A lot of homeschoolers like this method too. And there has even cropped up sort of a one-day kind of schoolish, well, it's not really schoolish, but there's a one-day program, Classical Conversations, that you may have heard of, that borrows some things from the classical method. The classical method, you can read about it, The Well-Trained Mind from Susan Wise-Bauer, Teaching the Trivium by the Budorns, triviumpursuit.com, Veritas Press, those are some companies that serve classical method. The classical method is based on 3 stages of learning. You have the grammar stage, the dialectic stage, and the rhetoric stage. Those roughly follow developmental stages of how children naturally learn. The grammar stage is very heavy on memorization. The dialectic stage is when you start teaching logic. And kids, that's usually around middle school. And if you've been around middle schoolers, I mean, they start to really ask, well, why? And really become a little bit more argumentative and things. So that's when you teach them logic so they can argue effectively. And rhetoric stage is when they take all that learning and they're able to do public speaking and write eloquently about their perspectives. But this is the method of education that was used in the Middle Ages by the rich, we'll say. And it has produced great minds throughout history. It's a very academic method of educating children. And it's how our forefathers were taught, using these stages. The idea is to give children the tools of learning so that they can become lifelong learners. So I mentioned the grammar stage is about memorization. It's about forming a framework of knowledge, and a lot of it is memorization and acquiring your basic language and math skills. That's up to about age 12 or so. And then the dialectic stage is you're teaching them logic, and you're equipping them with those thinking skills, because you don't want them to be fooled. So they have this foundation of knowledge, and now they're revisiting that foundation and building on that so that they can detect when somebody is not giving them a sound argument about their thinking. And then at about age 15, that is the age for the rhetoric stage, roughly about sophomore year of high school on through. But we generally, it's those 4 years of high school are lumped into the classical stage of rhetoric. So there aren't really a lot of curriculum providers for that method, but you can check out the ones that I mentioned. And I would recommend taking a look at Susan Wise-Bauer's book, and I think Dorothy Sayers is another person that wrote about that and sort of revived those ideas. Memoria Press is another one, in addition to Veritas Press. A lot of people like the classical method because, as I said, it's very academic, very scholarly. It is tailored to stages of mental development. So it works with your child and what they are generally capable of doing in each stage. And it teaches thinking skills, very important. And in the end, because it gives children the tools of learning, it creates, hopefully, lifelong learners who know how to learn and know how to find information for themselves. And very importantly, they learn how to think and how to think critically about what they see and hear in the media, and which can help them to make good decisions. But the disadvantage is that it does require a little bit more scholarship in the parents. because it's really challenging to use that method if you don't read the books and learn the method yourself. So you're kind of learning with your student a little bit. And it does require a significant amount of teacher involvement and planning to use this well. Unlike some of the other ones that you can sort of open and go, there's some of that, depending on what curriculum you might use. But it is a little bit more involved. And sometimes there's a little bit too much emphasis on ancient classics instead of modern classics. So you can end up with a child that speaks well and talks a lot about things that no one else talks about. And so that's hard to relate to other children, other young adults, and that can cause problems for them. So just that's another method, the pros and cons of that one.